With Bernie Sanders now 3 for 3 in primary contests in the popular vote, and looking like he's gonna have a great next couple of weeks, we decided we're gonna get way ahead of ourselves and make some suggestions for the 10 people we would like to see him pick as VP. Emma Vigeland of Rebel HQ is with me. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. So we each sort of have 5. We're gonna alternate.
Yeah.
We're gonna see if there's some overlap, which there might be. If there is, feel free to just hold and then reveal it when you reveal your number.
I shall hold and reveal.
Okay, and maybe we'll give some honorable mentions if there's time after.
Yes, I would like to mention some people who can't be actually eligible for his vice presidential pick. Like Pramila Jayapal would be a very top pick, but she was born outside the United States. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is too young. Ilhan Omar, who is also born outside the United States, not eligible to be vice president. So I just want to put those 3 out there because
good note.
They're awesome.
Yes, good note there. Okay, with that, let's launch into it with my number 5, which is going to be Khanna, who's one of my favorite congressmen. And I will say there are not a lot of men that I considered for the VP pick because I do think it's very important that we not always have 2 men on the ticket. But look, he has a great record, both independently and working in conjunction with Bernie Sanders. I can't think of an ally on national security and foreign policy issues that has done the more work with Bernie Sanders. He's been a leader in the fight to stop military intervention in Iran, to break off our support for the Saudi war on Yemen. He's great on a number of different issues. And so if Bernie was going to go with a man, that is who I would suggest for him.
And my number 5 is also Representative Ro Khanna.
No.
Yes.
Right off the bat overlap.
Right. Well, poor Ro, he doesn't get past 5 for either of us. But I agree that he probably strategically should pick a woman. But I put him down at 5 because California, it's a blue state, doesn't have as much strategic importance in terms of if he were to select a man, perhaps he would select one from a state that was more of a battleground state. But Representative Ro Khanna has a close working relationship with Bernie Sanders, was one of the first to endorse Bernie Sanders. It just would make a lot of sense, and it would be coming full circle, bringing that peace policy, that anti-intervention, that genuine anti-intervention as opposed to just playing at it, bringing that kind of perspective to the White House in a real way and a fundamental change of American politics.
I agree. I don't think it's going to happen, but he's got the double seal of approval here from the Damage Report. My number 4 is technically not possible for reasons that she laid out, but I'm picking AOC for my number 4. I knew you were gonna go emotional. I said this before the show. John's gonna pick things that aren't even possible. Don't describe it as emotional. I realize I'm screaming as I don't describe it as emotional.
Oh, yes.
It's a good pick. Here, look, before I get to the substance of why, here's the obvious problem, is that constitutionally she's not old enough. Who cares, honestly? What has the Constitution meant in our country for the whole time, but especially the past few years? They're not abiding by any of it anymore, and that is literally the dumbest part of it. She can serve in the House, but she can't be VP. Serving the House in many ways is more important than being VP, but she would be an absolutely awesome ally of his, overlapping on all of the most important issues. She could help to shepherd through the Green New Deal. It would set her up very well for her own presidential run, which is definitely gonna happen. I'm not being emotional, I can't wait for it to happen. She would be an awesome debater going up against Mike Pence. She would be great on the campaign trail. It would be Bernie Sanders, who'd been holding down like the sort of New Deal era Democratic philosophy for literally decades, allied with the future of the Democratic Party.
I didn't realize we were living in fantasy land and trying to do.
My next pick is Baby Yoda, so.
Right. Well, I have a much less, a more realistic, pragmatic pick. I specifically went this route because I knew you were going to pick AOC, and I knew it doesn't make any sense because it can't happen.
It makes sense. Take it to the Supreme Court.
That's
honestly
a really stupid hill to die on. Okay.
Well, I gotta choose one.
She could be the head of the EPA. She could do all of these other things.
That's true.
Okay. So my number 4 pick is Representative Mark Pocan. And okay, he is the head of the Progressive Caucus. I only edged out him with Ro Khanna because of his strategic importance, just basically being from Wisconsin, and also he is someone behind the scenes who's really important that a lot of people don't report on, because as the head of the Progressive Caucus, he's someone though that has goodwill with both the left and the Pelosi wing of the party, so it could be something strategic. Again, this is a rational choice. This is not something that's very sexy.
No, that's fine. And look, I consider that too, trying to bring someone who would make it a little bit easier for the Nancy Pelosi types to come on. I don't necessarily have those people on my list, but I did consider a few. So my number 3 is going to be
Harry Potter.
No, it would be Ron, stupid. Harry Potter, who's handed everything. Ron worked for it, okay? And he never got any recognition. Anyway, my number 3 will be Hermione Granger. No, my number 3 is gonna be Stacey Abrams. Now I have a couple of picks that I think would be great as the sort of VP that's there to make one thing happen. And so she would be there, tasked with the mission of and given the authority to make sure that we have an actual democracy. That she would spend 4 years, maybe 8 years, eviscerating voter suppression in the many forms that it comes, helping to overhaul the way gerrymandering works. I understand it's a federal position, but she could work in tandem with people in the states to make sure that we have an actual democracy that we were like raised to think that we had. That's what she's been working on, and I think that that's what she could do as VP. I have not loved some of her recent commentary around Mike Bloomberg. This is with the assumption that that is an outlier, but she's done great work throughout her career, and I think that she could continue that as VP.
And what this would do would be to create goodwill as well with the Democratic establishment. She has created a lot of goodwill for herself with the bigwigs in the party, because she's kind of, I would say, ideologically a blank slate. When she stands for a lot of good things and standing against voter suppression, sure, but like I don't really know exactly where she would go when it comes to Medicare for all or something like that. She's not someone who's taken a ton of hardline policy stances because she ran for in Georgia and not on the national stage, but has a lot of, again, connections with the Democratic Party. So that's a really good pick. My number 3 is Representative Rashida Tlaib.
Interesting.
So I actually, that's
obviously I'm a big fan.
Right. So she was born in the US, so she's eligible, and also from Michigan. So I'm kind of going a little old school here with my
strategic state level
geostrategery, right? But also a longtime ally of his. I think she's a fighter. And a long time. I just mean in this presidential campaign, because she's not been in Congress for very long, but she brings that activist fire that I think is so inherent in his presidential campaign and would be a great pick for him. She's a really strong progressive, as we all know.
I agree, she certainly is. My number 2 is going to be Pramila Jayapal, and I'm going to admit I did not know that she was born outside of the United States and thus is not constitutionally eligible, but hey, take it to the Supreme Court, like I said with AOC. This, like with Stacey Abrams, is a pick to accomplish a mission. She has been pushing for Medicare for all. She's a big defender of it. She's endorsed Bernie Sanders. She would be there to help do the most massive overhaul of a major part of the American economy and all of that we've had in our entire history. She's got the pedigree, she understands the law better than like literally anyone, like right up there with Bernie Sanders. I think that she would do a great job in that way. She's a great progressive too in general, obviously, but
I love her. I mean, if she were born in the United States, she would be in my top. She would be in my top 3 for sure. She's awesome. One of my favorite, one of the most underrated progressives in the country, I would definitely say.
I agree.
So speaking of underrated progressives, my number 2 is Representative Barbara Lee. So the one hiccup here is that she initially endorsed Kamala Harris for strategic reasons.
I found that out during my research as well.
Because she's from California, but that does not square with who she has been as a progressive member of Congress. The sole vote against the AUMF back in the day, we're talking about anti-war voices with Khanna. She's been one of the strongest anti-war voices in the history of the United States.
For decades,
and she just has a great way about her. She's just so humble and like a great legislator and someone who has really paid her dues in Congress for a really long time, well respected, obviously came close to getting that leadership, Joe Crowley's old leadership position, but just short because she's too progressive. I think she'd be great for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, she's awesome, and I didn't love the endorsement, but there are people online whose thing is like, hey, this person who you think is awesome, here's a reason you should hate them now.
Right.
I'm not one of those people. For all that she's done, she gets to do quite a bit.
She kind of gets a free pass.
Obviously. So look, my number 1 might be fairly obvious at this point, considering what has already shown up. But look, I love all my picks. Be perfectly happy with all of them, even though 2 of them are invalid.
Okay, the Chiron gives it away.
But it's there. Okay, no, it's Tina Turner. So look, this is different than some of the other picks to shepherd through a major piece of legislation. This is because she would be like the sword at his side. Like this is like the fighter, the bulldog, the person who is going to not only like set the campaign trail on fire, but is going to back him up as the defender that he both deserves and needs, by the way. It would again, like with some of the others, set her up for her own potential run in the future. For all the reasons, obviously policy reasons, we've interviewed her multiple times, you know my feelings. I think that she has a lot of what individually make these people good, all in one package.
She's a state senator for a short amount of time. I don't think that that's the kind of resume that Bernie Sanders would want for his VP pick. Not that she's not unreal and amazing. She'd be, I think, better in a press role because she's such an amazing speaker and someone who can be that bulldog and someone who can be that fighter. It's better to do in a public forum, in my view.
That would be fine, but look, I get that she was a state senator, but she also has worked now for years as working with Our Revolution, and like that's an important activist role too. I don't think that electoral politics should be the only way
I get it.
Considered.
That said, my number 1 is Elizabeth Warren. Yeah, so. We're talking about send Elizabeth. There we go. That's just she's no last name required. This would be the ultimate unity move in the sense that there's been a lot of divisiveness, but it would come full circle. Now I'm gonna get a ton of hate for this pick, but I just think it makes the most sense. I just really do. Bring the progressive wing of the party back together. Let her wash her hands clean of many of the mistakes that she's made in the past, and it's not risky to appoint a senator from Massachusetts, a blue state, to the vice presidential position. You're not going to lose that seat to a Republican.
It is a Republican governor.
Right.
Who would be appointing at least for some period.
Some period, you're right. But yeah, okay, that's a good point that I completely forgot.
So look, if you're gonna send hate to her, at me on all of it because I agree with her 100%. She's not on my top 5, but that does not mean that I don't agree with all of her reasoning.
Yeah.
I do. I would say one of the main reasons is Bernie comes from a state that has a Republican governor, hypothetically would replace him with, at least for a period of time, with a Republican. That would also happen with Massachusetts. In the short term, a 2 Republican senator swing, hypothetically, is pretty devastating to getting his agenda across. So that was important to me strategically, but I agree with you. It would be a great unity move. And if she worked her butt off for him the way he did for Hillary, in 2016, I think that would buy back a lot of the respect that a lot of progressives had for her.
And again, ideologically on paper, they're aligned, but it just is. It's how she's campaigned recently that has put people off, not her legislative history. Besides the anti-war stuff, I get.
Yeah.
But when it comes to senators, she's pretty much as progressive as it gets without Bernie Sanders, being there. So
okay.
Yeah, that's my.
And if you're on YouTube or anywhere where you can leave a reply or want to tweet us someone you think we might have left off, feel free to do that. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.